Welcome. It's said that 90% of millionaires invest in real estate. And on the Freedom Founder podcast today, we have a guest who has found success investing in real estate and continuing to build companies based on that area of real estate investment and development. So I want to introduce today my guest, Solomon Floyd. He's a former airman with the U.S. Air Force. He's the founder of several real estate focused companies and is the managing member of the Reunion Variable Income Fund. As a real estate investor, he has invested in development of over $15 million in deals within tertiary and military markets. He continues to use strategies based on his experience in the military to work in those communities that are based in those around those military bases, and the income and the areas that they provide, the insights that he's learned through that experience. So, welcome, Solomon.
Heck yeah, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, I wanted to just kick this off a little bit. Has real estate always been an interest to you?
I wouldn't say it was always an interest. I think I fell into it quite accidentally.
Okay.
So when I was in the military, I had several jobs in my short time there, but the
Yep.
one that allowed me to kind of learn the most and gain the most, insight into what it is I wanted to be doing, which was serving an underserved market. And the easiest way I could think about doing that was like I had this binder actually right here,
Yep.
um, you know, has 100 different ideas in there about what different businesses to start, and
Okay.
that ended up turning into just they were all based on one thing and one thing only. They all need a place for the business to be on the ground. And so I thought to myself,
Yep.
well, they have to have this real estate component. So I used my continuing education credits in the military to go get my real estate license. And in my real estate license course, I'm learning all this stuff about real estate, and no one is talking about, VA buyers. No one's talking about anything with military members. They're all talking about civilian stuff, and that
Yep.
opens my eyes into the world of the difference between the civilian marketplace and the military marketplace. And from there, I was instantly hooked. And now all I do is serve the military marketplace to an almost exclusive level where we can provide them housing, businesses, and everything in between, all geared towards America's most underserved population, the United States military.
Yeah, no, that's great, and especially when you can see that from your own direct insight, having been a part of that community, that there's opportunity there to provide additional places for dwelling, places that are affordable, places that people can um, be a part of the community. I mean, that's impressive just to take that from the direct experience and continue to operate in that after your time in the military as well. So, in regards to the area of real estate and focused companies specifically, when we say that in plural, talk about that a little bit and where things started. You started off with getting your real estate license, and then things continued to develop and grow to where they're at today. So, talk a little bit about that progression and the addition of other companies as you went along.
For sure. So it started off with exactly that, getting my real estate
Yeah,
license, and I hated every bit of it. The classes were boring and the tests were
sure.
terrible.
Yeah.
So I get my license, right? And I don't even end up using it. I just kind of get started in wholesaling properties. There's a
Hmm.
long story that goes in with that, but basically I make 100
Hmm.
trips to my target market, Wichita Falls, Texas, with 100 investors. And I'm like, hey, there's value here. 100 investors say no. I tell
Hmm.
myself at 101, I'm done. I'm done with Wichita. I'm
Yep.
no longer going to try to sell it. 101 that we drive up there, 2.5 hours there, do the tour for another 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours back. So it's a lot of driving. And, I'm thinking to myself, like, he's going to say yes because he hasn't said no yet. Lo and behold, 101 says yes. And that kind of kickstarts everything else into play. And what that
Yep.
allowed me to do was, one, kind of reinvest back into myself where I could get my own property portfolio. And then two,
Yep.
focus on something that I like to call complementary investing. So
Okay.
where there is an area that is in need of services doesn't mean you can just go in there and flood them with services, right? There's
Right.
getting financing, there's getting a franchise to say yes, there's getting employees to work for you. There's so much that goes into it that I think
Yep.
realistically, what I was able to truly identify was I can build 6 homes, or I can renovate 6 homes in a row, and I can put my investors on the other side of the street and also do 6 homes. So that's 12 homes right
Okay.
there. That's
Yep.
12 people paying, you know, call it 1250 per month in rent when they originally were paying 950. That's an upgraded house, that's new
Yep.
appliances, that's military members. It's just finally giving them a place to live. Well, the idea was if I can own a coffee shop or a barber shop or even just a little convenience store where they can just walk down the street, get their gas and groceries, and then be on their
Yep.
way, we'd create this complementary investment cycle. So I convinced an investor, I was like, hey, let's go take a chance. We have these homes right down the street. Why don't we just build them a little coffee shop? We build them a little
Yep.
coffee shop. And it ends up really kind of working out pretty well to the point where it gets leased by a third party tenant. But because it's just in walking distance, everybody's able to make something happen where these military members are always going there before they go to the base, or they're walking
Yep.
there on Sundays or Saturdays with their day off, and the neighborhood starts using it and starts growing it. We start hiring people from the neighborhood who are now making a better wage than they were doing anything
Yep.
else, and so now they can rent better homes, and so I kind of immediately start seeing the trend of like, well, if I just build up the housing, build up the density. I can then provide the services where they aren't really there. And if you've ever been to a place like Wichita Falls or one of these rural military bases,
Hmm.
there's not a Starbucks there, right? Starbucks isn't going to go there. There's not enough college
Sure.
graduates, right?
Yeah.
Trader Joe's isn't going to go there. Not enough college graduates. So
Okay.
all these what I call restrictive criteria for big companies to go into a market mean that there are so many people that are underserved to the point where you can create your own little franchise or you can create your own little company. And again, coffee companies don't really cost that much money to create. It's really expensive
Hmm.
as the rent. But realistically, you can get a bag of coffee beans for maybe $110 a bag, but you can make
Okay.
about 2 grand per bag, right? So
Okay.
that's a big rationale for trying to make something happen where you don't need this state of the art, beautiful coffee shop. You kind of just need the bare minimum until you can improve and improve and improve. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing is build up an area and improve slowly but surely, improve slowly but
Yep.
surely. Every 2 years, we add, we add, we add, we add until there's no more room to add. And then we move down the road, move down the street, move to another
Yep.
neighborhood, move to another town, another city, just depending on what our need is. We're only building for what the need is, not really
Yeah.
building for anything other than, I always say this on other podcasts. There may be 100,000 people there, but I don't need to build 100,000 homes,
Right.
right? I
Yep.
don't need to build 100 coffee shops. I really just need one coffee shop, one barber shop, and maybe 60 homes. As a real estate
Yep.
investor, that's key for me. That's
Yep.
passive income at its finest. But when I think past
Absolutely.
that and go towards the altruistic route, which is these people do need housing, then I can think about it as okay, well, let's target 150 homes per year. And for
Yep.
every 100 homes we build, we bring in one commercial property. And as
Yeah.
long as that ratio is met, we've always had a really good success.
That's awesome. So you're not only investing in properties, you're also building new properties. Is
Yeah,
that correct? Yeah.
that's
Okay.
exactly it. And
Awesome.
right now, that's a lot more of our business than doing the renovations.
Okay.
Some of these properties are really old,
Yep.
so
Yep.
the idea is, let's try to maximize our profit, maximize our gain. But also, again, right, I can have one home with one family, or I can buy that home, tear it down, build 6 homes, and have six
Yep.
families. And six
Absolutely.
families buy more coffee than one family does. It's just simple math.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're providing a brand new home for these families that are coming into that area for sometimes even just short few number of years, I assume,
Yeah,
based
sometimes
on it.
months, right? So
Okay.
it'll be a matter of either it's a short-term rental or we sell it, and
Yep.
immediately once it's sold, right, clock starts ticking down 2.5 years to 5 years to 10 years are sort of the time frames. But
Yep.
now when that home gets sold, the lady who's been working at that coffee shop for 5, 10 years, she's finally got enough saved up. This home finally
Yep.
comes on the market and it is within her price range. It is within her square
Yeah.
footage. That's what we're
Right.
trying to create. And that's what our military niche really allows us to do is, hey,
Yeah.
let's build for the community. Let's build for everybody by starting
Yep.
with one and then doing the trickle down every other way.
Yeah. Some definite synergy in that environment.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
with with regards to business, I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about got to get your MBA, got to get your degree, got to go to school. Talk about that education in business, and specifically whether you went to college, got some coursework in the area of business, or how did you become educated to be a business professional?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It really wasn't anything other than I'm a very big person in observing and asking questions. So,
Yep.
going back to what I said earlier, I don't build what I want, I build what's needed. So,
Yep.
before I go in and build anything, before I go and bring a business anywhere, I'm asking the people who are going to be utilizing this service, what do you want to see? How much do you want it to cost? And, realistically, if I build this, how often are you going to use it? And most people will be
Yep.
like, I use that coffee shop every day. Again, I use coffee because it's easy and it's simple. You
Yep.
can even say a barber shop, right? But people only get their haircut, what, once every 2, 3 weeks,
Yep.
if that, right? So you're really relying on the input of the people who are going to be using it. But again, for me, I only focus on the military aspect. I focus on that
Right.
first before I focus on anything else because in the military, their regulations have to get a haircut, right?
Yep.
You have to look a certain way. So I can count
Sure.
on that 2 weeks pretty often,
Yep.
and it makes it
Yep.
significantly easier for me. So I'd say my business education from all of that really came from being in the military. I
Yeah.
myself am a college dropout, right? So I went to
Okay.
boarding school. That was
Yep.
really helpful for me to be able to kind of understand how people who are wealthy stay wealthy and how people who
Yep.
are poor stay poor.
Sure.
And with that, I think there's this common ground in the middle where everybody can benefit right down the middle, right? If I
Yep.
invest in X that helps you achieve your goal, even without you knowing, right? That again, I go back to the example that if that lady who's working at the coffee shop is now like, hey, it's been 5 years, I'm ready to buy that house, right?
Yep.
I know that in that 5 year time frame, that's who's gonna be buying the house. Does she know that she's gonna
Yep.
buy that house in 5 years? Absolutely not. At least not,
Right.
consciously. It'll be subconsciously. But with that being the case, it's one of those things where it's one of my favorite things. I think people always tell me, if you build it, they will come.
Yep.
And because it is a market where things are still cheap, and I mean things are still cheap, right? I'm selling all my properties for sub 300K for the most part.
Okay.
So with that being the case, it becomes a real affordable house, which means
Yeah.
anybody could buy it, anywhere from about $10,000 to $15,000 down to purchase a house from us,
Yep.
as a civilian, which means maximum affordability for a market that doesn't have one, inventory, and two, affordable inventory. So
Yep.
those are the things that you kind of identify. And I think when it comes to building a business, you want to be in a position where you can be as horizontally integrated and vertically integrated as
Yep.
possible. I say, if anything, limit your vertical integration, but you really want to make sure that your horizontal integration allows you to move forward in one progressive time frame, right? So
Uh-huh.
5 years, 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. That's how you want to look at it from the investing in a business standpoint. Where are
Yep.
we going to be every 5 years? So that way we can adjust. Because if you start a business now, 5 years later, whatever market you've invested in, whatever you've done, it's going to be
Hmm.
significantly different. Technology is going to be
Sure.
different. Customers' needs is going to be different. If you've done a
Yep.
good job, you've helped your customer identify what those needs are in those 5 year time frames. The benefit
Yeah.
of my markets is this. I like to think about it in this super abstract way, but my markets are still stuck in 2008, right?
Okay.
But they have the dollar of 2023, which isn't that
Yep.
strong. But let's just say it's more than the one that we had in 2008. So my
Sure.
property values are still low here, which means my opportunity costs are lower.
Yep.
Um, the dollar amount is higher, which means my revenue is higher. So it allows us to be able to say, okay, well, once we build the coffee shop, now I can go and I'm going to wait 5 years. In 5 years, the taco shop opens up across the street. Because if
Yep.
I can prove that the coffee shop is doing well for 5 years, I should be able
Yep.
to have a very similar use case for the taco shop. And I
Yeah.
don't build, super large commercial properties. We don't renovate super large commercial properties.
Yep.
They are mainly drive-through driven for the reason
Okay.
that people are on the go. And if somebody really wants to sit inside and work inside of my coffee shop, they can. But for the most
Yep.
part, I want those people at home. I want them in the homes that they're buying, that they're living in. I want them
Yep.
enjoying the light coming in from their window. We maybe have a few seats in the coffee shop, maybe a few seats in the taco shop, but realistically,
Yeah.
we want people grabbing and going, moving and grooving.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So you're seeking that whole holistic experience and thinking about the family and the space that they're living in. And so, I mean, you found your niche, and you're seeking to add value in that niche, and not only just with the housing, but also with adding in some retail spaces that people will find value, and that will
Yeah.
help create that additional interest in maintaining that living space for a longer period of time if they have that, which is what they would like in that area. And like you said, a Starbucks may not come to some of these areas, a Trader Joe's might not come to these areas, but if you can add that because that is something you're seeing as a need, then you're going to add value for yourself as an entrepreneur, but also within the community you're operating.
And
Yeah.
that's it. And it's a matter of what I call a triple win scenario. I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs, let alone real estate investors, are taught this.
Yep.
Most of them are
Okay.
taught, I'm going to buy for the lowest price. Well, I don't know if the lowest price helps the person who you're buying the home from all that
Yeah.
much, right? And then I'm going to sell it for the highest price. Well, who does that help? It only helps the person who can afford the highest price. So I think
Right.
that's a single-minded approach versus I build not only for myself, right? My investors. So that's
Yep.
one way that we win. Well, then my contractors come to me and they say, well, we also have to live in this area. We also have to be able to send our kids to school. We also have businesses we're trying to run. That's another
Yep.
fair thing to really accomplish with your supply chain. And again, being horizontally integrated, that construction piece is the vertical integration side of where
Yep.
you're going to be in that supply chain from your own supply chain, right? So I'm gonna need them at point A to help me build the home, right? So instead of doing what most people would do is like, hey, I'm going to hire the cheapest, fastest crew that I can, which is going to literally cost you on the backside. I'm going to
Right.
hire the most experienced,
Yep.
well-managed crew. But the difference is
Yep.
I'm not going to pay their 15% markup up front. What I am going to do is give them 15, 25% of that deal. And not everybody's
Okay.
going to go for it, but the ones who will understand that value because volume is going to be key. So when I
Yep.
can say, hey, I'm building 6 homes versus you're only going to build the 1 home this quarter, I'm going to give you 6 homes to build this quarter. But
Yep.
I don't want the markup. You're going to put the markup. I'm going to give it to you when the homes sell. And I
Yep.
think for construction people, you got to build that trust. But once I built that trust, it was a lot easier for me to be able to maintain our horizontal and vertical integrations to make
Yep.
sure that we can always produce at the cheapest cost. And once you can do it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, those people are always going to join your side. But from
Yeah.
there, it is then being able to sell the home at an affordable price to the third
Yep.
person. And that is what we call a triple win scenario. The investor wins, the contractor wins, the buyer wins. And if everybody can win in this scenario, one, your deals move quicker. Two, you have far more leverage in the community
Yep.
versus being the guy who comes, buys everything, kicks out all the people who can't afford to live there anymore, and then immediately sell it to the people who came from out of nowhere who have
Yep.
nothing but money to spend, right? So it's all
Right.
about making sure and
Yep.
maintaining the fact that, I'm not in markets where there's someplace else to go if I buy up the entire market. Like after that,
Right.
there's nowhere else, which means I have to be very conscious of this entire process of raising home values. And so with
Right.
that, I've raised the home values in my market, or at least seen the home values in our market raise from an average, 75% AR, or sorry, $75,000 ARV
Yep.
back, 8 years ago, to now, 150, 160, 170. So
Right.
again, not the most amount of money, but in 8 years, $100,000 worth of growth. I think that's key because that allows people to slowly build with you. And
Oh
again, the
yeah.
idea is they're going to be
Definitely.
buying, exactly, they're going to be buying homes from me down the line. So instead of taking them out of the market immediately, I'm just making sure that horizontally, when they get to the point they need to get to, they can buy.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. I love that longer term thought process that you have. And that was something that we mentioned briefly when I introduced you is the Reunion Variable Income Fund. I wanted to ask if you could just talk a little bit about that. I know for some of the listeners, they understand real estate investment, buying a house and maybe renting that house out or making some updates and renovations and then selling that. But what's the income fund and what does that do for someone who's looking to invest money in real estate?
Sure. So the Reunion Variable Income Fund, RVPP, is our fund that takes out some of that having to be one accredited investor. For those of you that don't know what
Yep.
that is, there's some work you can do to look up on it. I think there are multiple definitions, so I'm not going to give you one, but if you're smart, you can look it up. And it takes out some of that work of having to say, I make $200,000 a year.
Yep.
I have, X amount of dollars saved up. And so where a lot of people get lost in real estate is they really think there's only two routes. I'm going to buy my first property, fix it up, and then flip it, right? Or I'm
Yep.
going to or rent it, one of the two, right? But buying a
Yep.
property in whole is the first route. The second route is syndications. And most people are
Okay.
going to try to syndicate. I think those are the most two common forms of real estate investment out there versus there are REITs and funds. And my fund in particular just
Yep.
takes all of our cash flowing assets, puts them underneath one roof, and distributes that income to investors who invest in our fund. So the
Yep.
benefits there are one, no minimum investment, two, immediate cash flow returns. So there is no downtime waiting. And then three, the ability to grow that money as you keep growing. So we have
Yeah.
options for people who want to invest monthly, whether it's $500 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever it is. But it allows you to start building that real estate foundation
Yep.
without really having to own anything or having to wait in a deal. You are investing in this company. This company is using your funds to go and purchase more deals. But as you invest in their company, they are giving you a return based off of the portfolio that they already own. So while
Yeah.
you are in this portfolio that's growing, they're building everything around that. And that's exactly what we're doing with our fund. So while I go
Yeah.
out and build more homes, more apartments, more commercial property, you are benefiting from the fact that my portfolio is already cash flowing with a lot of these items, from
Yep.
hospitality to storage to commercial to retail to all of it. There are going to be those big benefits there where,
Yep.
again, it depends on the fund, right? But like, for example, my fund pays out quarterly instead of yearly. And there are a lot of
Okay.
funds that'll pay 8% per year. 8%, if you're a new investor plus a salary, that's a really good return.
Yep.
Versus if you can find a fund like mine, you can literally get a 7% return every single quarter, which is, I guess, what, a 28% return almost. Being able to get that every single year for quite literally, I don't want to say nothing, but for $500 to $1,000 or higher, right? And what that
Yeah.
will give you is one, it'll give you two things. It'll give you the ability to earn passive income, which is key. It'll help you establish this base that you
Yep.
need because a lot of people
Yep.
do the one mistake, which is, well, I'm going to quit my job and then I'm going to go invest in real estate. And it's like, well, time out. um,
Right.
that's not going to help. And that leads me to the
Yep.
second thing that it gives you, which is credibility. A bank is going to look at you when you go do your first deal and they're going to say, well, what's your income stream? Oh, you quit your
Right.
job to invest in real estate? I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, I want a joint venture with you and here's all the money
Yep.
I have. And I have to turn them down because realistically, if something bad happens, I can't say in good conscience that you should invest with me with all the money you have. Like if you
Right.
don't have
Sure.
a first stream of income and a second stream of income, then you're probably not qualified to invest. And what a
Yeah.
fund and a REIT will do will make you more qualified to be the investor that people are looking for. On top of that, it's also just going to give you passive income, and
Yep.
everybody loves passive income. So you
Absolutely. I think I might have lost you in that moment. Passive income, though, definitely is something that, in regards to real estate investment, is something that people are looking for. And it sounds like Solomon has an opportunity. So we're bringing him
yeah,
back in here. So just
oh
adding
yeah,
that,
that
passive income, definitely something that people are looking for when they're looking at investing in real estate. And so sounds like that's an opportunity that is worth exploring. I'm going to have two more questions real quick for you. One, in regards to business, what is a big life lesson or big business lesson that you've learned along the way that you can share with our listeners?
well, I think I gave you two of them already, but the first one is definitely from this alone, right?
Yep.
In real estate, and this is primarily real estate and business. The first one I
Yep.
can give you is identify your niche and identify what your niche needs. That's number
Okay.
one. For me,
Yep.
military members were ultimately that niche. That was probably the biggest thing that I learned from. What I
Yep.
had to do with that niche was separate myself from who they were. And
Right.
because I thought to myself at the time, like, well, I'm from Dallas, so I'm going to go build Dallas style properties. Not everybody wants this super modern luxury home, right? Some people
Yep.
just want something super basic with a nice backyard. And so I had to learn to kind of tamp that down a little bit. What I
Yep.
learned from that situation was I can build a shell of a property and then I can sell it to somebody and they can finish it out however they want.
Yep.
It's a
Yep.
much better selling product. It still allows me to keep it affordable, but I also get the benefit of allowing the people who are buying homes from me to buy my homes at 95% leverage, which is really
Yep.
good. So they're coming into my properties with 5% down whenever they want to buy. And that's
Yep.
really good for first time home buyers. The second
Absolutely.
thing that I mentioned here is uh, working with contractors and doing things right. I
Yep.
learned this lesson probably 100 times, and I think I'm still going to learn this lesson. But you're going to meet a lot of people who are like, do it for the cheapest cost. Cheap doesn't
Yep.
equal right. And if you get the professional who gives you the higher price, they're giving you the higher price based off of their experience in that field. I'd say always go
Right.
with the more experienced professional and learn that
Okay.
lesson because it costs exactly what it costs to do it right the first time. If you
Yep.
cheap out on it, it's going to cost whatever the cheap cost was, plus whatever it is you're going to have to do to fix it.
Yeah.
And you
Absolutely.
don't want to be in that situation more than once because, as we call it, you will lose your bottom side if
Yeah.
that starts happening to you over and over and over again. So you want to make
Right.
sure that you are doing the diligence, understanding the cost, and it's really not that difficult, right? Imagine you
Yep.
can just go on Home Depot and say, "Well, this vanity only costs $200. Why is this jabroni charging me eight?" And have them
Yep.
explain to you why they're charging you $800, right? If you say, "Well, I'll supply you only the vanity, you just give me the labor," that's even a
Yep.
much better aspect of what you're trying to do purely because that'll give you some more control. So experiment with that as you look to buy, purchase, invest, whatever it is, renovate, as long as you are the person who is saying, here's my budget, here's what I'm trying to stay within. And if you get three people that tell you that's only going to get you this far, and they all tell you the exact same, length that'll get you,
Yep.
and that's what it's going to get you. And you've got two choices: reevaluate your deal or move on to the next one. And it's a-okay to move on to the
Absolutely.
next one.
Absolutely. Great. Great advice. So, in regards to my final question, $1 million question here. So, if you were to be given $1 million today to invest in your business, where would you put that specifically? And this is not from someone who's saying that
I
this
think I
is
may have
all of
lost you.
their money. So, all right. Just in regards to, you still hear me? All right. $1 million question. We'll come back around to that if he's able to rejoin us. But if you are interested in finding out more about Solomon and what he is doing, please reach out to him. His email, solomon@reunioninvestments.com, or check out his website, reunioninvestments.com. I know you would gain a lot from reaching out to him and exploring what he has to offer. And if you have any interest in finding out more about the Freedom Founder podcast with me, Zach Duggar, please reach out to me at zach@thefreedomfounder.com, and hope to hear from you soon. But for today, let's finish up with that. I want to thank Solomon for his time and for joining us and sharing of his wisdom and his experience serving his community in the military and the surrounding markets that they live in. So, Solomon, I was just signing out and saying thank you for joining us. And I have already shared your contact information if anyone who wants to reach out to you. So, any other parting words for us today?
Yeah, I guess if you want me to answer that last question real quick, I don't know what
Yeah,
happened.
yes,
Yeah,
please do.
what was it? I'm sorry.
$1 million question. Just if someone were to hand you their $1 million today, not that person who is saying that it's their last dollar that they have or
Yeah,
all of their money,
yeah.
as you mentioned earlier. But what would you do with that today?
With $1 million today,
Yeah.
honestly, huh, let's say I'd first look into the most needed spaces right now that are going to be the most required for people to get what they need. So I'd look into affordable housing, self-storage,
Yep.
and then I'd look into the other aspects of what we have that are in need of shortages, is what I call them, right? So we've
Yep.
got a pilot shortage, we've got a engineering shortage, we have shortages of actual jobs that people do versus business dev or anything like that. I would look for opportunities where I could invest that money within things like maybe a flight school that trains inner city kids or underprivileged children. Because
Yep.
at that point, one, that's going to be a great return. If you don't know, all of the airlines pay massive recruiting fees to be able to bring on pilots. So if you think
Yeah.
about it, $1 million would probably realistically, let's see if we can do this, would probably train about 43 pilots and getting their private
Okay.
pilot. And then the airlines would take them over from there, get them moving. So that's a good way to
Yep.
one, make some money. Two, I think I would really look towards something like, again, my fund or another REIT that I really enjoy called Rad Diversified.
Yep.
Those are going to be the two that I would look to the most, purely because they offer a significant return profile. And again, they pay out quarterly instead of yearly. The third
Yep.
thing I would do, cold storage for sure, and or chemical storage. So if you could find
Okay.
yourself in a tertiary market right off a major highway and or railroad, those are going to be
Yep.
the options for you that you think you could probably make the most amount of money. Those are going to be your highest returning things. So pilot training referral program where the airlines pay you. Um, the second one, it's gone now. Well, the third one, storage, chemical storage, and
Yep.
everything in between. And then I don't remember
Absolutely.
what the third. Oh, the third one, funds and REITs. The third one is
Yep.
funds and REITs.
Yep.
So if that's something you want to really look into, definitely some place to go check that out. For my website, at least, rvpp.com, rvppfund.com, or you can, just hit me up on LinkedIn or our website at reunioninvestments.com. Be happy to go through this
Perfect.
information with you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. You are a man with depth, and there's so much more we could have got into today, including your own the fact that you also have your private pilot's license. But I want to thank you
Yes.
again for joining us and sharing your journey. So please, for those that would like to reach out to Solomon, I know you'll get a lot of value by doing so. So
I
thank you
appreciate
again.
it.